Hey everyone, Loudini here, Lou Lombardi, a.k.a. Loudini, with another interview series here on the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. I would like to tell you guys about this awesome record label. Earache Records was founded in 1986 in Nottingham, England, by owner Digby Pearson, helping to kickstart a global music revolution in the process. The label was responsible for some of the very first extreme metal recordings ever released, launching the careers of metal pioneers such as Napalm Death, Morbid Angel, and Carcass, and ushering in a new scene standard, which still thrives to this very day. And the reason I'm telling you guys about Earache Records is, first of all, Earache Records has gone beyond metal. They have two of my absolute favorite bands, Rival Sons and Temperance Movement. And I am really excited today because on the line with us, we've got Al Dawson from Earache Records. Al, welcome.
Hey, Lou. Thanks for the big introduction. We're in a very, very exciting time for the label. That said, there is definitely pockets of people who only know us from the extreme metal stuff, and then there's people who have no clue whatsoever that we've done a lot of extreme releases in the past. That said, I do feel that there are some people who have grown with the label, and I also do feel that when you talk about pioneering and creating new genres or what have you, like you mentioned Carcass. Carcass just played London on, I want to say, the Thursday night or Friday night last week to 2,000 people. They're still going strong, or in fact, they're going stronger than ever. At the Gates, when they reformed, that was one of our bands from Sweden who launched a whole scene as well. They were playing like festivals in Germany to 100,000 people. They were headlining and stuff. So,
wow.
So basically, we're almost operating on two levels right now, where there's whether you want to call them pioneer artists or what have you, or legacy artists, I guess is the best description. Plus, we have this whole generation of blues rock guys. I mean, Rival Sons, we've been working with them for close to 5 years now. I first saw them play in a little club in New York called Pianos in front of maybe 40, 50 people. The last time they played New York, they did Irving Plaza, which is about 1,300 capacity. They sold that out. And now they just they're doing the worldwide, their main support for Black Sabbath all of next year.
So you guys, let's take a little step back, because so we get bring everybody into exactly who you are and what's going on. You are with Earache Records. Give us a little bit of background, Al, a little bit on yourself first, right, and give us a Reader's Digest version of how.
Sure, real
us up
quick.
To today.
All right, so I'm originally Australian. I am from the west coast of Australia. For those who kind of know, well, Australia's that place with the kangaroos and stuff, but don't really know much more than that. We basically the same size landmass as the lower 48 states of the U.S. So picture that. We're about that size, yet we have less than the population of California. Now, my state, I'm Western Australia. It's literally 1/3 of the country. I think the ruling is you could fit the state of Texas in 3 or 4 times. Yet, there's more people. I live in Queens County in New York. I live in Queens. There's 2.2 million in Queens County, and there's 2 million in the state of Western Australia. So it's a very, very beautiful place, but it's very, very isolated from the rest of the world. Like if I want to fly home, basically I fly any further, I'm hitting Antarctica. You know what I'm saying? Like you're literally right at the end of the world. So I knew I wanted to do something in music, but I knew that the chances of me doing something in music based that far away from civilization was next to impossible. So I took a trip around England in 1986, and I stayed with a bunch of pen friends and people on the underground tape trading scene of the time, and one of those people was actually a couple who had an apartment right in the middle of the city center of Nottingham, and they said, you can stay 1 week, but if you want to stay longer, you can stay with our friend Digby. And I ended up staying 4 or 5 weeks with him, and he was in the process of looking to start the label at that point. And I went back to Australia and thought, you know what, if I had to live anywhere in England, I would choose to live in Nottingham, which is kind of 2 hours out of north of London. I mean, it's basically Robin Hood, Sherwood Forest. They have a castle in the middle of the city, in the downtown, right smack in the middle of the city. They have the oldest pub in England, 1189 AD. Wrap your head around that. It's like 900 years, roughly, of people being getting hammered in that place. And you go in there and drink, and you can feel it. You know what I'm saying? It has that whole thing. So I went back to Australia, took every job I could get just to get the money to move back there. And by the time, and I stayed in touch with Digby, and in that time, the first couple of releases came out, and the third release was Napalm Death Scum, and basically that toppled this pop singer, Kylie Minogue, from the #1 place on the independent record charts. And from the band Napalm Death, the singer left and formed a doom rock band called Cathedral. The guitarist left and formed Carcass. The drummer left. I mean, these are all over time, not at the same time. The drummer left and formed a band called Scorn, which was dub ambient stuff. We ended up doing 4 or 5 albums with him. But basically, that band was the seed that started everything. So, yeah.
Okay. So you were there at the beginning.
Yes,
of this,
the
first
beginning,
of this
actually,
record label. Yeah. So what does it take? If you could give us some, like, I mean, I'm sure. First of all, I'm sure there's a lot, and we could be on the phone for hours talking about this. But could you give us a little bit about what it takes to get a record label going? It seems I
know a bunch of different guys who have run labels, and if you think of pre-Napster and pre-Internet, in the back of local music magazines, like every week, the Village Voice, whatever, it'd be, hey kids, get 1,000 CDs for $999. And if you think of every person around the country who had their buddy's band, and it's like, you know what, I'm going to start a record label. I'm going to, you guys are going to record. I'll press up the CD. It's $1,000 for 1,000 CDs. It's $1 each. I'm going to do this. The amount of people who do that and 10 years later still have 990 CDs sitting in their closet or in their basement or whatever, it takes the people who do it and it sticks and they build something out of it are very, very unique individuals. Like, they are definitely not cut from the same cloth as everybody else. Steve Gottlieb from TVT, Daniel Miller from Mute Records, they're mavericks. And I believe it's that is what it takes to do it. Because as I said, every second guy I know has, like, their buddies are in some kick-ass band, and they're like, they see the ad, or they used to see the ad. Nowadays it's just put it on TuneCore or whatever. They see the ad and they pressed up the CDs, and it didn't happen. Or maybe they got some good reviews and the band did a tour or whatever, but nothing more went from there. You know what I'm saying? Like, many people have tried, but I guess it's the same with guys going to the music store and buying a guitar and thinking they're going to become the new Metallica or whatever. A million people a year go and buy a guitar and maybe cut a demo, but very few people get to make an album, and very few people get to get a record deal, and very few people get to do that and make $1 million from it.
Right. So very few people get to do this. So what does it take then? So you're in this. What is your position at Earache?
I run everything for the U.S. operation.
Okay, so what does it take for a band for Earache to get excited about a band and want to sign them? What's got to be going on? If you think about it from the outside looking in, and people either think we're death metal specialists or we're blues rock specialists, but the reality is, even from the very early days, we had John Zorn, the jazz saxophonist. We did a couple of his releases. We did Painkiller and Torture Garden, which were his stuff. I mean, it's like it's saxophone, but it's crazy, crazy saxophone stuff. Right.
We had Fudge Tunnel, which was like a three-piece grunge band from Nottingham. We've done industrial bands, Godflesh, Pitch Shifter, Misery Loves Company. We've done extreme techno releases, Lenny D, a lot of that Delta 9 and DOA, the New York like extreme techno of the late 90s. We've done all sorts of stuff. I think for us, if it's really good and we think it's something unique and there's something special behind it, and like there's like basically three of us that make decisions. If we're all on the same page and like, yeah, this is something pretty special, then it's something we can get behind. Like it's not like, it's not like a conveyor belt where we just churn out people. We like to see something unique and something special in the artists we do, and I think that we're all so passionate about it. If we weren't feeling it, we couldn't work the artist. And we actually discovered Rival Sons on YouTube, and we just could not believe that they didn't have a record deal already. But unfortunately, in the last 5-6 years or whatever, most of the majors people at the majors who are still left, they have a belief that unless it's hip-hop or female pop music, it's not going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we had the opportunity to come in and pick up the band and build a career for them.
So what do you want to see when a band approaches you? Now, you have to be excited about the music, obviously.
Right.
On the band side,
here's the thing. We've had people, back when we used to have a voicemail answer machine or whatever, we've had guys go, yeah, man, we're going to form the best kick-ass doom, gothic, grind, industrial band you ever heard, but first we're going to save up the money and buy the instruments or whatever. And it's like, what? I think for us, at the level that we're doing it now, a band has at least got to have done their own recordings, whether it is for a smaller label or for their buddies or whatever, but you've got to go in the studio, you've got to have at least made a record. And I think, too, there's probably a couple of exceptions, but in general, too, at least have a national tour under your belt. Because, I have lost track of the amount of bands that we've signed on the debut who, as soon as it comes to, all right, we got you a tour, you're going to go out on the road for 30 days, and then the bass player and the drummer quit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's something that all of a sudden everything just got real. Do you know what I mean? Like it's one thing to, hey, guess what, girls? I'm in a band. Aren't I cool? And, go play a gig at the local bar, then come home and go to your day job. But when you have to pack up everything and you're out on the road, things get very, very real. And I believe, too, that any band, you can be in a rehearsal room and play the songs over and over and over. Like, yeah, man, we got this. We got these songs. We know them inside out. Then you get up live, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I don't have this. I forgot the solo, or I forgot the final verse on the song or whatever. It changes you when you play them live. But when you play them live night after night after night, it's definitely you step up from being a private to a sergeant or what have you. Like there's a change in the band, and it's very different from just playing like, oh, well, we've done 1,000 rehearsals in a rehearsal room. That doesn't count, Right. And
yes, it's a whole other thing on stage. It's a completely other, totally different dynamic.
I lived in England all through the 90s, and if you think of the boom of the prolific pop bands that came out of England in the 80s, like UB40, Human League, all these bands, a lot of them were funded by the generous unemployment system and the benefits that they had at the time, that they live on that and you could spend all day creating music. I don't believe that happens anymore, but when all through the 90s, any metal bands that we knew, they're on unemployment, whatever, and maybe you get together in a rehearsal room for 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon and jam, and the general belief with the English kids, even though you want to say heavy metal started in England with Black Sabbath and Judas Priest and,
right.
in the 60s and late 60s and the 70s, the general belief that English kids had were American bands were better. And one of the reasons for that, if you're born on the East Coast of America, for example, what is it, 2/3 of the population live east of the Mississippi. Petrol or gas is a lot cheaper in America. When you're 18, somebody knows somebody who has a van. It's very easy to go from town to town, so you can be an unsigned band and play from Jacksonville go to South Carolina the next night, North Carolina the night after that, play somewhere in Virginia. You can play up and down the East Coast. So by the time you get a deal, by the time you get to England, you're so tight compared to those English bands who are rehearsing once a week and are on unemployment or what have you,
Right. It's a whole other thing. Okay, you want to see guys that have put some time in on the road, who've gone out and done it, so that nobody's like saying, "Oh crap, we actually have to work."
But basically, that's basically, as you were asked. To me, that's the criteria: is you've done a national tour and you've done some recordings. Ideally, you've recorded an album for someone else beforehand, or what have you.
What does there's in this age of do it yourself? I mean, you can. I mean, there's so much technology. I mean, I'm even amazed at, if you look at YouTube, the movies and stuff that people are just making with software, et cetera, that they're buying.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty impressive. So in this day and age of like do it yourself, what is the role of the record label?
It's almost. I mean, we talked about this. We were the second record label in the UK to have a website back in the 90s, and there was a lot of people saying that now that the internet's here, record labels are done, and we can just do it all ourselves. I mean, the whole punk rock scene in the 80s and that, it was all about just like bands like Black Flag and Minor Threat. There was a network of underground clubs, and you did press the records yourself, but when someone like we come along, all of a sudden, bloggers take you more seriously. All of a sudden, I mean, for example, it's possible for you and I to form a band now, record something, on Pro Tools or whatever,
mm-hmm.
and then put it out on TuneCore, one of those services, CD Baby, and get it onto iTunes, right?
Right.
We can do that tomorrow. However, when someone from Earache goes to iTunes and presents, I fly out there a fair bit, and you walk in and go, right, this is our new priority. All of a sudden, they sit up and take notice. It's very different from just, because a guy from Earache is here. He's made the trip from New York to California to present this. This must be important, as opposed to, I am, release number 1533 on CD Baby this week,
Right.
And, we have long-term relationships with a lot of music bloggers, with radio people, with booking agents. So all of a sudden, it's almost like our seal of approval. At one point, as I said, in the 90s, we talked about, well, what will become of record labels? And it could almost be if everybody can make their own record, if everybody can put it up online, that's great. But it's like, where do you point your browser to? You still need tastemakers, and you still need gatekeepers to say, well, this is crap. This guy just got a guitar and made some terrible noise, and he's recorded it badly, and he's thrown it up on the internet. Don't waste time with that. You know what I'm saying? There still has to be gatekeepers. And we're actually seeing now, not just us, but the music industry in general, are seeing people paying, like payola to guys who have playlists on Spotify or Tidal or whatever. Say, hey, here's $2,000. Add us to your playlist. Because if you're on Loudini's amazing Spotify playlist with 2 million followers, and my track gets added, all of a sudden that changes things for me.
Right. It's a sort of how you're associated.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's almost like,
it's like
if you're good enough to be on Earache, that means
right.
that you got the Earache. They're a bunch of cynical old bastards or whatever. You've got their seal of approval, so therefore you must be doing something good.
So we'll give this a listen versus something that we, from just Joe in his basement.
Yeah,
exactly. I work with bluesrockreview.com. I write reviews for them.
Right.
And I've talked with them about the same thing, and they're like, well, when somebody comes in, they've got a label and they've got, a publicist, and it says that's really where the relationships are, and that's how we sort of pick who we're going to feature, et cetera.
Well, when I first moved over here, I got a call. I don't even know the kid's name or who it was or whatever became of them. They called up one day, what is your internship program? I'm like, you what? What was that? and it was literally like, you want to come and you're going to work for me for free? Because Australians and English people was like, well, I ain't working if you ain't paying me. Get the fuck out of here, sort of thing. And I was like, okay, how weird. But over time and time again, we had people come in, and some people have been amazing, and all of those people have gone on and gotten jobs in the music industry. And there's other people who are like, hey, can you move that box of CDs for me? Like, why should I? Because I'm asking you. It's like, well, you're not paying me, so why should I do it? It's like, well, the last time I looked, education costs money. You're not paying me either. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, sorry. So they go do it, and then a job comes up in the industry, and they're like, hey, well, I kind of thought you'd be giving me that job. And it's like, well, why would I hire you? You know what I'm saying? So
right.
To me, and I tell all of the interns that come in, one of the things that's really going to do it for you is, everybody's got a great skill. Everybody's good at something. They're an amazing mixer or, amazing talent at finding new guys or whatever it is. But what really is the game changer is your reputation and your name. And time again, people would call me like, Al, we need a new publicist. We need a new junior this and that. And you'd be like, I've got just the person for you. And it's literally like, it's a cheesy saying, but it's not like what you know, it's who you know, and so much of the industry is based on that. So if someone, if you guys have a great relationship with such and such publicist, and they go, listen, I got the next killer thing here, you're going to sit up and take notice of that compared to, as you said, Joe Blow just sort of send you a link to his new demo or whatever,
Right, absolutely. Yeah, we work the same way here. I definitely, because you want to present quality, and you don't want to have to wade through, 500, basement tapes.
Well, we used to, back when, now everybody just sends a link, which is kind of cool in a way, but we used to get the CDs and the cassettes, like would get 5 to 10 a day every day, and because everybody was at the office would be completely slammed with whatever they're actually paid to do, they'd usually go in a giant box, and every now and then an intern's like, what's in that box? It's like, demos. They're like, well, would you mind if I put them on? I'm like, no, go ahead. And here's them with these visions of they're going to find the new At the Gates or the new Rival Sons, and literally by the end of the day, they'd put on 10 seconds of the song, all right, enough. Because 99.9 times out of 100, they're just not good enough.
What? So are you guys still looking for acts? You have a pretty big roster.
We're always looking for acts. It never ends,
So okay, what can an act do? Okay, say they've got they have toured, and the thing's together. Nobody's going to run off because they know they've got to go tour, and they've done a good record. Wow. That could be 100 people, or it might be 500 people. How do you pick? What can a band do to kind of get themselves, noticed by you a little bit more?
It's got to have. What is that film? Show Me the Money, the Tom Cruise film, Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire. Yeah.
They got to have the Quan. And what is the Quan or whatever? It's that untouchable thing you can't put your finger on, but it feels special.
Mm-hmm.
And someone's got to have the Quan, But outside of that, because everybody thinks, hey, I made something special, but outside of that, the criteria really has to be, have you recorded before? And in a proper studio with a budget and successfully done so, and have you done a national tour, That's the basics. But there's definitely times where we've looked at artists and we're like, nah, this is, really, they're nothing special there. And then another label's come along and done amazing work with them, and we're like, what? How could we have missed it? You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's ears are perfect. And what's the saying? Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And there's definitely artists that I've looked at and thought, these guys will, okay, it's one thing to be popular in Europe, but these guys will never do anything in the U.S. And next thing you know, they're selling out and doing, 50-date American tours. And
can you name somebody, or do you not want to? You don't have to.
I would prefer. Actually, here's one, and I do like their first record, but I thought, to me personally, it's so English. Like, it's very, very English. It'll never happen in America. The band The Darkness.
Oh, yeah.
Like, honestly, because I lived 10 years in England, and before that, like, Australian culture, at least when I was growing up, was definitely there's still a very strong British influence in it. So I kind of got it, and I thought this is pretty cool. But I thought, you know what, this will never work in America. It's way too English and, you know, Eurocentric, whatever. And boom, next thing you know, they were the biggest things in sliced bread in America, you know.
Yeah, they definitely had their moment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think they're actually on the comeback trail now. I'm not sure whether it's still the two brothers or one of the brothers left or whatever. But that was definitely a band where I thought, you know, that's all very well, because at one point in England even, I think it's something like 1 in every 3 households in Britain had a copy of their album or something insane like that. And I was like, that's all very well for England, but it'll never, ever work in America. And it did work. So, you know, we don't know everything, and we probably missed on some epic bands over the years because of that, but, you know, it is what it is. And I also think, too, that if it doesn't happen for us, if it's meant to be, it'll happen with someone else will see the genius and it'll happen. You know. Well,
there's plenty to go around. I mean, there's always somebody with more music who says, "Hey, listen to this."
Yeah, exactly.
So we talked about you know Rival Sons. What other projects are you guys like really promoting really hard right now that you want to talk about?
We have a great guy who's literally a singer-songwriter, which is, again, is very weird for us, because I don't think we've ever done that before. It's almost like Eddie Vedder meets Johnny Cash, or it's very dark and very heavy, but it's called The White Buffalo. He's out of California.
Oh, yeah, I know The White Buffalo, yeah.
Yeah, we do him for Europe. He has a good record label in the U.S., but they have nothing happening in Europe. So we just picked him up for Europe. So right now we're putting our team in place, the publicists, the radio people, because again, we wouldn't hire someone who worked a Deicide record to work their record to the press or to radios. It's a different kettle of fish. So we're putting our team together now. The records, I believe it's out digitally in Europe already, and the CD and the LP is coming out in February. But again, that is finding the right booking agent who's going to get them the right shows over there, finding the right team, building the team around them. You know, but the idea is that he gets a career going there, and because you can't always tour the U.S., you know. You can't keep playing the same places over and over. You've got to be elsewhere, you know.
What is? I hear artists, say, "Oh, Europe is so much better." And I've heard people say that. Is that not good? No, is that true? No.
It depends. It depends. I mean, I know that every English and every Swedish and Norwegian band, the day that you pick up a guitar and strum it in front of your bedroom mirror or whatever, you're like, the goal is to go to tour in America. Mm-hmm. America's the holy grail. No one sits there going, I can't wait to go tour Belgium. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, America is that, you know? Mm-hmm. So, and then there's people like, oh, they have so much better festivals there or whatever. And then the European, it's the grass is always greener syndrome, right. I personally believe. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. So what else? So Great White Buffalo. What else? What else do you have going on? You want to talk about?
We have another band from Georgia called Blackberry Smoke. We do them in Europe. It's really a real quick story for you, which is weird that they were on Zach Brown's record label, which did a really good job for them in the U.S., but they didn't really have anything going on in Europe. And I literally talked to management and the record label, and then they had a team of advisors for 11 months, because for them at that point, even though we were doing Rival Sons, it's like, why would we do a southern rock band with this crazy metal guys and all this sort of thing? So it was 11 months I'm working with them, and then the band were on tour, and they came up to play Irving Plaza. Fantastic show, sold out. We waited till everybody was done and ready to receive guests, and we went backstage. And in my head, I was like, "Okay, here's all the reasons why Earache in Europe is a good fit for you guys." I walked back there, and Britt Turner, the drummer, He goes, "Hey, Al, how you doing?" I'm like, "What? Like, I know this guy. How do I know him?" And it turned out, all through the 90s, he was roommates with, we had a grindcore band called Brutal Truth. He was roommates with the singer Kevin Sharp. They're best friends. And every time I'd come to New York to visit Kevin, there would be Britt, the crazy roommate, in their apartment. So he knew all about us. He was like, "This is the label we got to be on." And it just worked. And it turned out him and his brother Rich were in a band called Nihilist from the Atlanta area in the late 80s, early 90s. They were a thrash band, and they wanted to get signed to Earache. And we were about to sign a Swedish band called Nihilist, which actually ended up changing their name and became Entombed. But we told them at the time, saying, "Listen, we're about to sign another. You guys are good. You're really good at what you do, but we're about to sign another band called Nihilist. You have to change your name. This isn't going to work." And I told Digby, the owner, the next day, and he was like, blue cassette, black ink, sat on the right-hand side of my desk, and it literally was on his desk for like 7 years. So this guy tried to get on to Earache in the early 90s, and he ended up like 20 years down the road getting a record deal, but with a completely different band. But again, it's something like if something is destined to happen, then by hook or by crook it will come about.
Wow, that's really intense. 20 years later.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, anything else you want to add here before we wrap up here?
Yeah. I think for me, for a band, is, to me that's it. You've got to if you want to get on a label at our level, you have to have previous recordings. We did a band called Municipal Waste, which is like a crossover thrash band. And what had actually happened, again, this is so much, whether from the industry side or from the artist side, it's so much on who you know. Basically, they're from Richmond, Virginia, which has an amazing music scene, Darkest Hour and Lamb of God and all, Guar and all this type of thing. My friend Tracy Wilson, who used to live in New York, moved to Richmond, Virginia, and one night Tony, the singer of Municipal Waste, was sitting in a bar with her, and he goes, "Look," because they're on a punk rock label, and they're like, "We need to be on a metal label, but no metal guys are ever going to understand what we do." And she's like, "That's not true at all. You have to send a package to my friend Al Dawson." And as soon as he sent this package, I'm like, "Oh my God, we have to sign this band." But again, they had a record out, they'd already done touring, but they were ready for that next level. But again, if he had just sent me the package, we probably would have never looked at it or whatever. But because he knew somebody who knew me, and I trusted her, and she knew what we were about, it all came together. So much of it is networking and your name and your reputation.
Well, that's something that like a lot of younger people don't really realize, I think. So I think that's really good advice, Al.
Yeah.
Because they just don't realize when they're shooting their mouths off or they're blowing this person off or whatever. Sometimes who they're talking to, like the gentleman from Blackberry, the guy from Blackberry Smoke. He knew you, and you obviously have like a fond memory. He wasn't like
absolutely.
a dick to you or anything like that, because it could have gone the opposite direction.
Yeah, that's true. Well, then you know what? It's not going to happen, is it?
Yeah.
As I said, so much of what goes on is down to your connections and your relationship with people. And if you're one of these people who goes in and crashes and burns and whatever, then I think ultimately you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. Because it is a very small world, and I believe that most people know people. And, we've even had things in the past where bands have said to us, like, well, Nuclear Blast Records and Roadrunner, they want us, they've offered us good money. And you call them up, and they're like, what? What are you talking about? Because they don't realize that we all know each other and we all talk to each other,
Whoops.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, man, it's been really good chatting with you. Hopefully, your listeners will find this as some help, or get something out of it.
Thanks a lot, Al. Thank you for taking some time, and we will definitely just stay in touch with me. Promote anything. I'll help you any way I can. Okay.
Thanks, Lou. Appreciate it, man.
All right, man. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Have a great evening.
You too, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.